Chapter 156. Xianxia smiled. Everyone, please don't be impatient. Please drink a few cups of wine. I'll go get the pills. Retreating into the darkness outside the hall, his smile immediately disappeared. It was obvious that he had a lot on his mind. Sir, Island Master invites you to the back hall. A servant respectfully said outside Li Qingshan's door. Li Qingshan followed the servant down the long corridor. Two swift and fierce men jumped out of the dark thicket and blocked their way. Who are you? The servant hurriedly said, Two heroes, are you our Island Master's guests? The two looked Li Qingshan up and down. How come I've never seen you before? Li Qingshan said, It's not like they're all people you can see. What did you say? The two were furious and wanted to draw their swords. With two muffled thuds, the two fell back into the dark thicket, turning into two corpses. Go see the King of Hell, Li Qingshan said to the servant. Continue walking. The servant trembled and hurriedly complied. In the study, Xianxia rubbed his hands uneasily. Suddenly seeing Li Qingshan come, he quickly invited him to a seat and poured him tea. Li Qingshan said, Island Master Xin, what do you want to say? Hurry up and say it. I can't wait any longer. With his hearing, he could clearly hear the clamor in front of him. His blood was faintly boiling. Xianxia lifted his lapel and knelt in front of Li Qingshan. I've already done as Sir instructed. I beg Sir to let this lowly one go. Over the past few days, Li Qingshan had never been willing to promise him that he would spare his life, which made him unable to eat or sleep well. Li Qingshan said, How do you know I'm going to kill you? Sir, are you really going to kill me? Xianxia raised his head in shock and stared closely at Li Qingshan. His gaze faintly showed the determination of a cornered dog jumping over a wall. Li Qingshan said, It's not that I don't want to spare you. It's that what you've done cannot be forgiven. Xianxia said in a hoarse voice, But this lowly one has already turned over a new leaf. Li Qingshan said, Turn over a new leaf? 6 months ago? Where are you? Do you think the Hawkwolf Guard can't find out? The Hawkwolf Guard did not have many core members, but as an organization of chi practitioners that did not care about money, they had countless informants and spies in the various major cities. Although no one had asked about the mission to kill Xianxia for all these years, the information had never stopped changing. This was to ensure that any Hawkwolf Guard who thought of him would know where he was and what he was doing on any given day. Xianxia suddenly recalled that half a year ago, he drank some wine and saw a beauty passing by in Riverside City. He brought her to the island and forced himself on her, reminiscing the romantic days of his youth. He argued, But I've already taken her as my concubine. Then how many more concubines do you want to use this method? Why don't you tell us about it? Li Qingshan's tone was very calm the entire time, but his anger was like scorching lava flowing beneath a frozen mountain, ready to erupt at any time. Xianxia's expression changed again and again. He pressed down, and a tile sank in. A series of springs rang out from the ground, and a huge metal cage sprang out, trapping Li Qingshan inside. The place where Xianxia had invited Li Qingshan to sit was actually a trap, and it was extremely well designed. From the moment Xianxia pressed down on the tile to when the mechanism was activated, only the blink of an eye had passed. Xianxia barked, Li Qingshan, you've gone too far. Since you won't give me a way out, then I'll die with you. The bars of the cage were as thick as an adult's arm. They were forged into a single piece, and there were many inscriptions carved into them. When Li Qingshan's fingers touched the bars, he immediately felt as if he had been pricked by a needle. At the top of the cage, there was a strange beast that looked like a tiger, but wasn't. Xianxia said, This was made by a Mahist mechanism master. It's called the Bayan Demon Trapping Gate. Even a powerful demonic beast can't easily escape. Just give up. I'll ask you again, are you willing to give me a way out? If you agree, I'll let you go, and I'll even help you kill people. If I say I'll let you go, you'll believe me? Xianxia was also struggling. I'm willing to gamble. I believe that you're a man. Buy-in. Li Qingshan was silent, and he slowly shook his head. Xianxia shrieked, Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You're currently in my hands. As long as you nod, we can all sit down and make friends. Although your cultivation is high, there might be a time when you need me. Li Qingshan laughed loudly, and his voice shook the entire room. It was as if a gust of wind had swept through the room. The calligraphy and paintings were swept to the ground, and the porcelain shattered. Shen Shihua covered his ears and circulated all the internal energy in his body to resist. He was shocked. Was he really only at the second layer of qi refining? The underworld experts in the front hall only stared at the wine cups on their tables. They couldn't stop trembling. The entire hall seemed to be swaying slightly, alarmed by the noise. What happened? Who's laughing? What a powerful internal energy. It came from behind. Did an island master Shin go to the back to retrieve the pill? Could it be that he's here to steal the pill? As soon as he said this, no one could sit still. Let's go and take a look. Let's see who's blind enough to dare steal food from the tiger's mouth. Li Qingshan stopped laughing and said to Shen Shihua, "You're just a pig and a dog. Do you think you're worthy of making friends with me? Even bad people had dignity." Shen Shihua said, You're going too far." A group of underworld experts rushed over and asked in shock, "Island Master Shin, what happened? Who is this person?" Those who could enter the study were all first-rate masters. Those with weaker martial arts, including their subordinates, could only watch from outside. "You forced me to do this." Shin Shihua's face twisted. He said to everyone, "Everyone, calm down. I want to talk about something that concerns everyone's lives." Everyone fell silent. Shin Shihua said, "This person was sent by the Hawkwolf Guard to kill us." Everyone paled in fright when they heard the 3 words Hawkwolf Guard. Although they regarded themselves as masters of the blacklist and acted as if even the Hawkwolf Guard could do nothing to their subordinates, they actually feared the terrifying organization that controlled the blacklist the most. In other words, there aren't any pills. Damned Shin Shihua, you've actually worked with the Hawkwolf Guard to screw us over. Everyone began to consider retreating. They looked at Li Qingshan like he was a man-eating tiger. The young man sat boldly on the armchair. His hair draped down, obscuring his face. Even though he was trapped in a cage, he gave off a terrifying sense of dignity. Shen Shihua tossed down a stack of papers. "Take a look. These are the official documents of the Hawkwolf Guard. He's come this time to kill us. Which one of you doesn't know what happened to the auspicious casino in Silver Mountain Town? It was all because of this kid. Do you want to be next?" They all picked up the papers on the ground and found their names. Afterwards, they trembled in fright. The honor of being a master of the blacklist had now become a life-threatening talisman. "Island Master Shin, what do you want us to do?" "In for a penny, in for a pound. Kill a Hawkwolf Guard." "You're mad. If we don't kill him, he'll kill us." Just as everyone engaged in an intense discussion, Li Qingshan coughed gently and attracted everyone's attention. He said, "Those who should be here are all here." Tanjonghao. A short, coarse, middle-aged man shuddered. "What do you want?" "In the past, you learnt martial arts under the tutelage of the Fist Master Wang of Bamboo Willow Village. It's all because he found you to be devious and refused to pass on all his martial arts to you, so you poisoned him, stole his secret manual, and became a bandit. Over all these years, you've blocked roads, killed people for their goods, and feasted on the hearts and livers of living people, isn't that right?" Under everyone's gazes, and with Li Qingshan in the cage, Tian Zhonghao refused to lose face. He said rudely, "So what?" Li Qingshan ignored him. He continued, "Zhao Riyong, you like to kidnap the children of wealthy families the most and then force them to pay ransom. If they dare to report you to the authorities or refuse to pay the ransom, you'll cut off their ears or fingers and send them back. Am I right?" Zhao Riyong's eyes and ears were sharp. His expression was cold as he sneered, "Those little bastards were born luckier than others. Of course, they deserve to suffer." Li Qingshan did not speak further with him. He continued to call out names one by one until the end. Those whose names have not been called out have joined the bandits, done evil deeds, committed countless crimes, or conspired against the law. According to the laws of Great Xia, their crimes cannot be pardoned and will be executed on the spot. And you, Xianxia, pay the price for what you've done. Everyone laughed. Is he crazy? Yes, we have to kill him. The laughter gradually faded. Li Qingshan stood up from the armchair. He grabbed the railing of the Bian demon trapping lock with both hands and pulled forcefully. His blood and qi surged, his muscles bulged, and his clothes were torn. The railing flowed with a blue light that resembled electricity, all concentrated on Li Qingshan's hands. He felt as if hundreds of needles were pricking him. Of course, he did not care about such a small matter. However, under his enormous strength, the railing did not move at all. Xianxia was shocked, but he relaxed. It's useless. You can't break my Bian demon trapping lock. A mocking smile appeared on the blacklist expert's face. He looked at Li Qingshan as if he was looking at a stupid beast. Li Qingshan's long hair was scattered, covering his face. The corner of his mouth curled into a sinister smile. This is... Xianxia was the first to sense the change in Li Qingshan's aura. This kind of change was something that only he, a qi practitioner, could sense. However, immediately after, everyone saw the change in Li Qingshan's body. Li Qingshan's originally tall and sturdy figure seemed to have grown a bit taller. His jet black hair flashed with a hint of scarlet under the light. His bronze skin seemed to have darkened. His arms, in particular, had actually become as black as iron. The metal cage let out a painful squeak. The blue electricity became more and more intense, but it could not stop the arm-thick railing from being pulled apart. Xianxia took a step back. This is impossible. Then he shouted, "Everyone, attack together and kill him." Chapter 157. Ships of all sizes were docked at the docks. A light drizzle continued to fall, creating thousands of ripples on the surface of the lake. A thin layer of fog appeared on the surface of the lake. The light from the glass cover of the boat illuminated a faint yellow circle. Everything appeared to be extremely calm. Many of the experts had been left behind to guard the ships in case someone cut off their escape route. They were all discussing in their cabins. Just now, a loud laugh came from the island. With a loud boom, a two-masted ship seemed to have been hit by something. It shook, and then began to sink at an extremely fast speed. The experts who had stayed behind all heard the commotion and walked up to the deck. They saw that the sinking ship belonged to the Green Wolves gang. Other than the Green Wolves gang members who were flustered and exasperated, everyone else stood on the deck and laughed, watching the show. But then there was another loud boom. Another ship began to sink, and then a third. Everyone felt that something was wrong. They shouted, "What's going on?" "Not good, water ghosts are sinking the ships. Those who can swim, go down and take a look." The water ghosts they were talking about were obviously not real ghosts, but people who had dived into the water. Immediately, more than a dozen vigorous figures jumped into the water. Their eyes tried to adapt to the darkness at the bottom of the water, and then they revealed astonished expressions. They saw that in the pitch-black and ice-cold water, there were actually two large flames burning, red with a hint of white. No one had ever seen such bright flames that were full of life. The flames quickly grew larger, and they could finally see where the two balls of fire came from. They couldn't help but stare in shock. It was a giant skull taller than a human. It looked like the skull of a giant, but at this moment, it seemed to have come alive from the abyss of hell. Its eye sockets were bursting with vitality as it looked at them with a burning gaze. Then it opened its mouth and swallowed them. The mouth was also burning with flames, as if the gates of hell had been opened. Little and stood in the pitch-black water, his hands clasped together, manipulating the skull prayer beads to swallow these people one by one. Then, it rammed into the remaining ships. The giant skull rammed into the bottom of the ship, immediately creating a large hole. With a series of dull thuds, the ships sank one by one. On the pier, everyone's faces were filled with unconcealable fear. The boat had been destroyed, and the people who had gone into the water never came back up. They didn't know what was in the water, but they were trapped here. Bang, 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 bang. With a series of soft sounds, the people standing on the shore fell to the ground like puppets with their strings cut. Everyone cried out in alarm, "Enemy attack!" "Where?" Come out, come out." No one saw the white shadow that cut through the rainy night. The skull prayer beads had already returned to their round and smooth shape. It was shuttling through the rain as if a sixth-layer Qi practitioner was using a weapon. It was not something that these Jianghu people could detect. More people fell to the ground. The more cowardly waved their weapons and looked around, but all they saw was the dark night. Some of the calmer ones tried to check the cause of death, but soon found that there was a finger-sized hole from the chest to the back, but there was no blood flowing out. Just as Zhang Xian was deep in thought, someone exclaimed, "It seems like there's fire." The others also noticed that there seemed to be a little flame in the small hole. The wound continued to expand, and the small hole became a big hole. However, not a single drop of blood flowed out. The flames silently devoured the flesh and blood of the dead. Every single person who had the right to be invited to the island of cherishing flowers was a ruthless desperado. However, people constantly died beside them. They could not see the enemy, only the strange sight. They were all frightened out of their wits as they retreated step by step. The flames devoured all the flesh and blood, and in the blink of an eye, only a skeleton was left. The color of the skeleton became brighter and brighter, and it was full of vitality. Then, as if unsatisfied, it exploded with a bang, emitting thousands of sparks that scattered on the bodies of these underworld experts. The flames passed through his clothes and did not leave a single burn mark. However, as soon as it came into contact with a bit of fresh blood and flesh, it was like fire meeting oil. It quickly spread and burned into a raging inferno. Cries of anguish rang out on the pier as dozens of people were set ablaze. In the blink of an eye, there was no more sound, only dozens of skeletons were left. Little and emerged from the lake water and calculated silently. 697. The remaining skeletons were covered in a layer of pale flames. The skeletons melted like snow very quickly, turning into several dozen droplets of bone fluid that merged with his body. Little and was just about to make his way to the manor and assist Li Qingshan when he suddenly sensed something and turned around. His eyes that burned with flames pierced through the thin mist and crossed an extremely great distance. He saw a huge, black ship sailing over slowly. After a moment of consideration, Little and still chose to make his way to the manor. "Ah!" Li Qingshan sucked in a breath and bellowed. Pure true Qi mixed with demon Qi turned into the tiger demon's fierce roar with a violent gust of wind. It landed on the experts of the blacklist, and they immediately flew backwards as they vomited blood. Their faces and chests were reduced to a bloody mess. It seemed like they were done for. Although this was only the tiger demon's fierce roar that had been weakened countless times over, it was still not something that mere masters of the Jianghu could withstand. In a single clash, several first-rate masters had been slain by a single bellow from Li Qingshan. These first-rate masters who were used to using their powerful martial arts to rampage around and do whatever they wanted witnessed the difference in strength between them and true Hawkwolf guards. With the sound of twisting metal, Li Qingshan ripped open a huge hole in the iron bars. The inscriptions on the demon-trapping cage dimmed, and all of its spiritual qi vanished. Li Qingshan walked out from within. He was like a vicious tiger that had emerged from a cage, giving off a threatening aura. The masters of the underworld all took a step back as they stared at Li Qingshan in shock and fear. Li Qingshan's body and hair returned to normal. Under the circumstances where he could not ensure that everyone was present, he would not reveal his demon form before so many people. The first person he needed to eliminate right now was obviously Xianxia, who could sense demon qi. "Oh no, the ships have all been destroyed." A lackey suddenly rushed in from outside and called out. "What? Who did it?" Tian Zhonghao grabbed the lackey by the shoulder and called out. I don't know." The masters of the blacklist all looked at Li Qingshan. Although they had heard what Xianxia had said, only now did they clearly realize that this young Hawkwolf guard actually wanted to make them all stay here and kill them all. Li Qingshan smiled and little and began moving as well. Afterwards, his eyes narrowed, and he looked past everyone, landing on Xianxia, who had hidden himself in the crowd in an attempt to flee. He called out, "Where do you think you're going?" Xianxia shuddered inside and turned around in shock. Li Qingshan's figure had already arrived with his voice, rushing towards him with a fierce gust of wind. A few unorthodox masters were unable to react in time. They stood in front of Li Qingshan, but like a stampeding herd of elephants had collided with them, they were directly knocked several meters away. All of their bones shattered, and they died without a single sound. With a flash, the talisman was burnt to ash. A golden figure rose up from Xianxia's body. His reactions were not slow either. In the face of imminent danger, he used a strength talisman of the Guardian Kings before forcefully turning around and swinging his 2 golden fists at Li Qingshan's chest from above. Li Qingshan did not seem to hear him at all. His right hand extended like a tiger's claw, reaching towards Xianxia viciously. Die! The tiger demon digs out the heart. His 5 fingers were like 5 steel rods, wrapped in true qi, forcefully stabbing into the golden light. True qi and the light collided violently. An ear-piercing sound rang out. Xianxia was utterly shocked. He had never thought a strength talisman of the Guardian Kings would be torn apart by a person's bare hands. However, he knew that his life was in danger, so he furiously gathered all of his true qi into his 2 fists and threw them at Li Qingshan's chest. Li Qingshan took the 2 fists head-on, but his figure only swayed slightly. His right hand shattered the golden light and seized the opportunity to grab Xianxia's chest. He pulled out a bloody heart. The scene suddenly quieted down. Xianxia, who had the highest level of martial arts, had not even been able to exchange a single blow with Li Qingshan. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to the many experts of the underworld. They could no longer care about anything else. They all took out their life-saving talismans and bit the tip of their tongues to spit out fresh blood. The talismans were activated and shattered one by one, giving off a bright light. However, all of them ran away at the same time. They did not even care about their subordinates. No one came up to fight Li Qingshan. When a fierce tiger descended the mountain, all the birds and beasts scattered. Talismans, I have one too. Li Qingshan casually took out a cool breeze talisman from his 100 treasures pouch and activated it with true qi. A whirlwind wrapped around his legs. His body seemed to become much lighter. He took a step forward, as if he was stepping on a cushion of air. He soared into the air. In the air, he pulled out the chipped wind-entwining blade and swung it horizontally. The expert with the best qinggong had already jumped over the wall. He was cut in half by the wind blade. Blood and internal organs splattered all over the ground. After Li Qingshan used the cool breeze talisman, his already swift figure became even more ghostly. A string of figures flashed out and blood splattered everywhere. A tiger entering a flock of sheep was not enough to describe its might. This was no longer a battle but a one-sided massacre. Under the absolute difference in strength, techniques were meaningless. He only needed to wave the wind-entwining blade lightly, and heads would fall to the ground. With every step he took, he killed from the study to the courtyard, and then to the main hall. It was as if a Jura had appeared in the world. The experts of the underworld fled in all directions like a swarm of bees. They hated their parents for not being born with 2 more legs. In their hearts, they cursed Xianxia's parents 1,000,000 times. One of them turned around and saw Li Qingshan's figure flashing towards him. He knelt on the ground and shouted, "I'm a spy from the Yamen." In the blink of an eye, he saw Li Qingshan standing in front of him. The long, jagged saber stopped in front of him. In the blink of an eye, Li Qingshan was somewhere else. His whole body was exhausted, and he collapsed to the ground, rolling and crawling to hide in a corner. Many people followed suit and knelt on the ground, shouting, "I'm also a spy." For a moment, there were spies everywhere as far as the eye could see. Li Qingshan did not have accurate information about these minions, so he was hesitating. On the distant surface of the lake, dozens of sparks lit up in the thin mist. A mournful cry sounded in the air as it rapidly approached. Boom, 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 boom. Within the deafening booms, the island of cherishing flowers immediately became a sea of fire. Chapter 158. Quite a few people stood on the deck of the ship. There were both monks and Daoists among them. They gazed at the island of cherishing flowers in the distance with worried expressions. Part 2. If the people of the Jianghu were present, they would definitely cry out in surprise, as basically all the decent masters of the orthodox path within several hundred kilometers of Jiaping had gathered here. There was black and white in the world. The so-called orthodox path was not necessarily pure, flawless, and chivalrous, but they were a group of people who obeyed the law and maintained order. There were quite a lot of people who treated benevolence and etiquette as their family rules. You could call it hypocritical, but most people in the world still liked to stand in the sunlight. This was the principle of humanity. The hypocrite Yu Buchuan had done many good deeds like purging evil and helping the weak at the end of the day, while the true villain Tian Buguang had truly harmed countless ordinary people. However, the conflict between the orthodox path and the orthodox path had never stopped for a single day. To put it simply, from the very beginning, if a martial artist wanted to live a luxurious life of luxury, the simplest and most direct way was to become a thief, steal money, and steal women. There were also many people who were unwilling to do this, but they also wanted to live a luxurious life of extravagance. They wanted to become young heroes, so killing a nest of mountain bandits was obviously a good choice. They would have money and women, and they would gain something else as well: fame. If a young hero managed to kill countless mountain bandits without dying, he would become a great hero, while a petty thief who managed to steal countless money and women without dying, he would become a great thief. The two of them obviously had a lot of enemies, but that did not matter. They had quite a lot of friends too. With this, they formed two groups of people who constantly fought with each other. To put it in simpler terms, there were countless grievances and grievances between generations. The grievances could go back several lifetimes. Every single one of the unorthodox masters who came to the island of cherishing flowers had enemies on the ship. When the news of the pill-seizing assembly spread, not only were the unorthodox masters restless, but the people on the ship became restless as well. When they thought about how their enemies would break through to the innate realm and appear before them, kill them, and then steal their money and women, they could not just stand by and watch. And if there were such great pills, who would want them? Thus, they secretly planned this operation. However, this group of orthodox experts was vaguely led by a little girl, and they respectfully surrounded her. The little girl was only about 13 or 14 years old. She stood at the bow of the ship, dressed in plain clothes that fluttered in the wind. Her face was calm and mature, but because of her baby face and her young age, she looked a little funny. An old monk with white hair and brows bent down and said, "Miss Hua, do you think so?" The little girl stared at the island of cherishing flowers in the mist like a general. She did not respond at all. The old monk raised his head and looked at the others helplessly. Then, they all looked at the young lady in purple beside the little girl. They were all renowned figures of the Jianghu, yet none of them could do anything to this little girl, as not only was she a second-layer Qi practitioner at such a young age, but she also came from a renowned clan. When she went out for training, she became acquainted with great hero Yu's daughter, Yu Zijian, who was also the girl in violet, which was why they agreed to assist her. As soon as they arrived by the lake, she took out a small boat from her 100 treasures pouch and tossed it into the water. It turned into a huge ship, which left everyone amazed. With her assistance, the operation this time was basically in the bag. The evil followers would definitely die a horrible death. Yu Zijin said, "Qinglu, say something." Hua Qinglu raised her hand with composure, telling Yu Zijin not to say anything more. Afterwards, she waved the small flag in her hand and ordered, "Turn the ship around and prepare to fire." The ship slowly turned around, facing the island of cherishing flowers on the port side. Afterwards, several dozen small wooden doors opened, and several dozen pitch-black cannons extended out. However, because the ship was a mechanical puppet, it was not controlled by the crew at all. Instead, it was completely controlled by the flag in her hand. As a result, the mighty order did not seem as mighty anymore. Instead, it was rather comical. Everyone revealed strange expressions. Yu Zijin whispered, "Qinglu, are the fire dragon cannons really that powerful?" Due to being doubted, Hua Qinglu's composed face became furious. She pointed at the island of cherishing flowers. "Watch me flatten this place." Afterwards, she ordered loudly, "Fire!" The pitch-black cannons sprayed with several dozen sparks, like the roars of fire dragons. They planted several dozen mushroom clouds on the island of cherishing flowers in the distance, destroying most of the structures on the island in an instant. The island of cherishing flowers, the magnificent hall collapsed, and the small, exquisite building burst into flames. The island of cherishing flowers that Xianxia had managed for so many years was reduced to ashes with his death. The orthodox masters on the deck were all shocked. They believed that even if they were on the island, they would not be able to escape alive. Compared to true innate abilities, acquired cultivators were just too weak. Yu Zijian murmured, "So powerful." A sliver of complacency appeared in Hua Qinglu's eyes, but she did not show it on her face. Yu Zijian asked in worry, "Qinglu, are there any innocent people on the island?" Hua Qinglu lectured earnestly, "Zijian, those who want to achieve great things shouldn't be bothered by trifles. You're still too young." The other orthodox masters all felt that this little girl truly was the descendant of a renowned clan. They did not take Yu Zijian's word seriously. As long as they could blast these bastards to death, who cared if they were innocent or not? Standing on the boat from afar and watching their enemies turn to ash, there was nothing more delightful than that. Great hero Yu smiled warmly and generously. "Zijian, even if there are innocent people, they've sacrificed themselves for the sake of the martial arts society. The people of the underworld are all cruel and cunning. If we can't be more decisive and smarter than them, how are we supposed to defeat them? You need to learn more from Miss Hua." Yu Zijian curled her lip. She dared not argue back. She only felt like her father had changed. In the past, great hero Yu would have scolded her sternly and scolded her if she dared to speak like this in front of the other members of the martial arts society in the past. If she dared to disobey him again, he would directly draw his sword. Although he had never actually cut her down, he was nowhere near as gentle as he was right now. Because of his daughter's acquaintance with Hua Qinglu, great hero Yu received the respect of the other members of the martial arts society. He basically laughed even in his dreams. Not only was Yu Zijian's future bright, but even he, her father, could benefit from it. Obviously, he was kind to his daughter. In particular, before Hua Qinglu, he was basically the epitome of a benevolent father. Under the flattery of the orthodox masters, Hua Qinglu smiled like she did not care. She waved the flag in her hand and launched another volley of cannons. The entire island of cherishing flowers was enveloped in flames and smoke. The shockwave struck a huge shield and dispersed as a whirlwind. Li Qingshan lowered the spiritual artifact shield and looked at the surface of the lake in surprise. What was going on? He was not surprised that there were firearms in this world. He was just curious as to who would butt in like they wanted to flatten the island of cherishing flowers. However, there was no point in thinking too much about it. It had instead helped him out. Cannon fire at this level posed no threat to him at all. With a table-sized shield, he walked through the cannon fire like it was flat ground. He was unscathed. However, to the unorthodox masters, it was basically the end of the world. Not a single supermaster who shouted, "You have cannons, I have divine arts," appeared. They were all blasted to pieces as they wailed for their parents, saving Li Qingshan the trouble of finding them one by one. Little and passed through the cannon fire easily and arrived before Li Qingshan. Within the endless booms, Li Qingshan nodded. His voice was swallowed up by the booms. His lips moved as if he was saying, "Let's begin." Both of their eyes seemed to be shining brightly. Little and brought his palms together and held the skull prayer beads in his palms. Afterwards, he lowered his head and chanted. The flames flowed like water, silently spreading through the heavy smoke. They crept from the collapsed walls to the burning buildings, devouring the corpses one by one. 427, 311, 225, 131, he silently calculated in his heart. Suddenly, Little and raised his head. His eyes shone with joy. All the flames began to flow back to his side. They coiled around him like snakes and turned into a large cocoon, wrapping him in layers. Gradually, Little and could no longer be seen. All that was left was a large crimson cocoon made of flames floating in the air. Li Qingshan stared at the flame cocoon. He did not look away for a moment. He clenched his fists tightly and suddenly became nervous. The bombardment continued. At this moment, a cannonball pierced through the thick smoke and landed on Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan's left hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the cannonball. Boom! The cannonball exploded in his palm, charring his hand. He continued to stare at the cocoon as if he did not feel it. He did not even turn his head. Time passed by slowly. Before he knew it, the cannonball had already stopped firing. Li Qingshan just sat down in the rubble and leaned on his hand. At that moment, apart from little and, there was nothing in the world, no one, that was worth his attention. Even Xianxia and Gu Yenying were no exceptions. His ambition of venturing beyond the 9 heavens was temporarily set aside as well. On the deck of the ship, Hua Qinglu smiled. "It's done." She waved her flag and ordered, "Let's go and take a look." "What's that?" someone suddenly called out, pointing behind the ship. Everyone turned their heads and became extremely stunned. A carriage tore through the mist, rapidly crossing the water and arriving before the ship in the blink of an eye. It stopped slowly. Grandma Shimin lifted the curtain and frowned. This was the Hua family's wave cutter. She had seen it in the Clear River Prefecture before, so she could not be wrong. The mechanical ship had been forged by a few great masters of Moism. The fire dragon cannons on it were powerful, and it carried several hundred mechanical puppets. Every single one of them possessed the strength of a low-level Qi practitioner, so it was extremely expensive to build. Her sect was powerful, but she could not ignore the Hua family's influence in the Clear River Prefecture. As a result, she called out, "May I ask which fellow from the Hua family is here?" Hua Qinglu leapt onto the railing and said, "Hua Qinglu is here." Grandma Shimin said, "So it's you, brat. You stole the family's ship and ran off to play? You better be careful of getting spanked for mixing around with these riffraff." The Orthodox masters all had no objections when they were called riffraff. Regardless of gender, they all stared at Grandma Shimin in a daze and sighed in admiration. There's actually such a beauty in the world. Even her wrinkles seemed to contain an extremely enchanting radiance. Chapter 159. Scarlet Hua Qinglu did not fall for that. She refused to back down. "So it's you, you old ghost. This ship was mine in the first place. You're the one who stole the carriage and ran off to play." Grandma Shimin said in displeasure, "You're so young, yet you're already so sharp-tongued. I'll definitely have a good talk with your father when I see him. I have matters to attend to right now, so I don't have time for a little girl like you." Hua Qinglu immediately retorted, "Then when I see Big Brother Qingzan, I'll have a good talk with him too. You old woman, you're bullying me just because I'm young." Grandma Shimin snorted coldly. The carriage sped up towards the island of cherishing flowers, leaving behind 2 tracks on the surface of the lake. In the carriage, the young man in red said unhappily, "Grandma, why don't you teach this girl a lesson?" Grandma Shimin said, "Neither her father nor brother are kind people. They're difficult to deal with, or I would have taken her life a long time ago. There'll be a time for her to cry in the future. If you hadn't insisted on eating the sugar-roasted chestnuts, delaying us, we would have arrived a long time ago and dealt with Li Qingshan. We wouldn't have to endure this girl's anger either." If regular second-layer Qi practitioners were bold enough to be so rude to Grandma Shimin, she would have killed them on the spot a long time ago. However, since they were from the Hua family, she could not help but show some respect. Moreover, Hua Sengzan's identity as the Scarlet Wolf Commander possessed quite the deterrence in the Clear River Prefecture. The young man in red curled his lip. "It's not like I'm the only one who wants to eat it. Not to mention, it's not too late right now. Li Qingshan must still be on the island." On the deck, Hua Qinglu gazed at the departing carriage and snorted coldly. However, her soft, nasal voice was nowhere near as forceful as Grandma Shimin's snort. It was more like a pout. With a wave of the flag, the wave breaker cut through the waves and pursued the carriage, heading towards the island of cherishing flowers. In the mist, the outline of the island of cherishing flowers gradually became clear. The flames from the cocoon grew weaker and weaker, like the setting sun. Only a scarlet sphere remained, and it grew smaller and smaller. Rain fell from the sky and landed on the cocoon, causing white mist to rise. The cocoon was filled with red light. Little N's body was curled up. Just now, he was in his mother's womb. The flame was no longer a flame, but a viscous liquid, like the amniotic fluid in the womb. Moreover, it contained a tremendous amount of life energy. Bit by bit, it completely soaked him. He had already comprehended a little of the essence of the path of white bone and great beauty. At this moment, he wanted to turn the dead back to life and enter a state that was neither dead nor alive, turning white bone into great beauty. His bony fingers formed a Buddhist seal, and a mysterious secret was triggered. Flesh grew from the bones, and the flesh was reconstructed. Li Qingshan held his breath. With a crack appeared on the cocoon and spread in all directions. Li Qingshan's heart was in his throat. A tender little hand stretched out from the cocoon. It was white with a tinge of red, as if it was carved from blood jade. One could almost see the veins and arteries within. Li Qingshan shot to his feet, but he did not dare to disturb it. Gritting his teeth, he suddenly felt his eyes turn moist and red. He had personally witnessed little Anne's soul turn into white bone, and then to the rebirth of flesh and blood. His heart was enveloped by great joy. He believed that no matter how cruel and bloody this path was, what he possessed was not just slaughter and hatred. With a series of cracking sounds, the cocoon shattered. Flames rose from within, and a petite figure stood in the flames, reborn from the ashes. A strange fragrance of sandalwood wafted into the air, immediately driving away the pungent smell of smoke and soothing one's heart. Li Qingshan took a step forward. "Little and you finally..." The flames dispersed, revealing a little girl, naked, with her hands forming a Buddhist seal, standing in the lotus petal-like flames. Her skin was like carved jade, and there was a red mole on her forehead. Her eyes were like two black pearls. From top to bottom, there was not a trace of impurities or dirt, as pure as a red lotus. She looked at her hands in confusion, as if she could not believe that she had really recovered her flesh and blood. She raised her head and looked at Li Qingshan. It seemed that she was not used to using her face. There was no expression on her face, but her black pearl-like eyes suddenly burst out with incomparable joy. She stretched out her arms to him. Li Qingshan was stunned for a moment, then he quickly walked forward and hugged her tightly in his arms, tears overflowing from the corners of his eyes. Just like the father who had been waiting outside the delivery room for a long time. Although he only found out that the child was not a boy, but a girl, to him, this little accident was not a big deal. It was not worth paying too much attention to. The joy in his heart would not change in the slightest. Li Qingshan could not stop saying, "This is great." After a long time, Li Qingshan suddenly felt that his tongue was clumsy and did not know what to say. He wiped away the tears at the corners of his eyes and said, "Put on your clothes first." Little N nodded obediently in his arms. Li Qingshan let go of her and rummaged through his 100 treasures pouch. He said in distress, "But there are only male clothes. Sai, why didn't you say so earlier?" Little N shook her head, as if saying that she had also forgotten. After so many years, whether it was a soul or a white bone, gender was not important. Li Qingshan was helpless. When the witch abducted her, she must have disguised herself as a boy to deceive others. It had always been his first impression. Li Qingshan examined Little and again, once again confirming that there was no mistake. However, he found that there were red marks on her body. Her skin was as delicate as a newborn's, like fine silk. Even she would be scratched, not to mention his rough embrace. He asked with concern, "Did I hurt you?" Little and shook her head. Compared to the pain of the blood flames burning her body and the blue flames burning her bones, this kind of pain was simply the most blissful. Li Qingshan carefully helped her change her clothes as if he was holding a fragile rare treasure. Little and opened her eyes wide. She wanted to say that she was not that weak, but she also enjoyed the care she was receiving at this moment. Li Qingshan could not help but pinch her cheek. It felt very good to the touch. It was so delicate that it seemed as if it would turn into water and slide down his fingertips. Touching the red mole on her forehead, he vaguely remembered that this was the mark left behind by the ginseng liquid. Could it also appear on the body? Little and was like a doll, obediently not moving at all. She let him pinch her. Feeling the warmth from his fingertips, her heart skipped a beat. Li Qingshan rubbed her smooth head and said with a smile, "It's a pity that you don't have hair, but it will grow back soon." Little and blinked her eyes and suddenly took a step back. She clenched her fists and held her breath, gathering all her strength. Then her black hair grew out crazily. Not long after, it fell from her shoulders to her waist. Li Qingshan hurriedly said, "It's done, it's done." Only then did Little and stop exerting strength. Her long hair had already grown to her knees. It was moist and lush like water plants, with natural curls. It was so dark that it did not reflect any luster. It was very special. He saw that she was wearing a gorgeous lake silk gown, like an extremely handsome young master. Li Qingshan looked at her with indescribable joy. He was very happy and could not help but laugh. He felt that the road ahead was bright and there was nothing he could not do. At this moment, the neighing of a horse came from the lake. Li Qingshan turned his head and saw a horse carriage passing through the thick fog, quickly approaching, followed by a large ship. Li Qingshan frowned. If his guess was correct, the cannons just now were fired from this large ship. And on the horse carriage, there seemed to be a strong aura, and it carried hostility. This was not the ability of a Qi practitioner, but purely the instinct of a demon. The horse carriage sped up the shore and quietly stopped in front of Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan saw an old woman wearing a large red robe getting off the carriage. Her whole body was emitting a threatening aura. Even Zhuozhibwa had not felt such a strong aura. Among the people he had met, the only one who was close to it was Hua Sengzan, but he was much weaker than Hua Sengzan. The person who came was a 9th-layer Qi practitioner expert. The West Gate granny disembarked from the carriage, but her gaze slid past Li Qingshan and landed on Shaoan beside him. Afterwards, she was unable to shift her gaze away anymore. Her face was filled with shock as she murmured, "Radiant like the flowers of spring, flowing with light, skin of ice and bones of jade, and makeup of jade. How can a single person possess so many aspects of beauty? Hold on, is this the legendary heavenly fragrance and nation beauty? This is impossible." Grandma Shimin was experienced and knowledgeable. Of course, she would not be shocked by a child's appearance. The words she said were not just simple words of praise. These were the standards and names used in the sect to judge a person's physiognomy. There was the flower moon physiognomy, the peach blossom physiognomy, the fragrant jade physiognomy, and so on. Some were high, some were low, and they were carefully divided into 9 grades. If one had any of the physiognomy, they would be able to cultivate the sect's charm arts with half the effort. If one had a higher physiognomy, they could easily achieve extraordinary results. The current sect master had the peach blossom physiognomy. He had been valued by the previous sect master and taken in as a disciple, which was why he had his current achievements. As for Grandma Shimin, she had the red flying physiognomy of the dancing red emerald physiognomy. She had also stood out and become one of the 4 great grannies of the sect. As for Jiaping City's top courtesan, Hibiscus, although her appearance was ordinary, she had been taken in as a disciple because of her graceful appearance. Among the various physiognomy, there was one physiognomy that only existed in legends. It was the physiognomy of national beauty and heavenly fragrance. The physiognomy of national beauty and heavenly fragrance was a combination of various physiognomy. It was the head of fragrance and the crown of all physiognomy. As soon as Grandma Shimin saw Little and she gave out the name of the physiognomy, and then finally came to this result that even she herself did not dare to believe. Rumor had it that once this physiognomy appeared, it was a sign that the world would be in chaos. Although it might not be accurate, it was said that this physiognomy's charm was a femme fatale, capable of causing the downfall of countries and cities. Grandma Shimin instantly cast Li Qingshan aside, completely forgetting about the disappearance of her outstanding disciples, Zhao Liangqing and Hibiscus. She stared fixedly at Little and walked over step by step. She was almost even more excited than Li Qingshan. Too beautiful, too good. If she was taken in as a disciple and brought back to the sect, Li Qingshan blocked Grandma Shimen's way with a swoosh, interrupting her reverie. He asked, "Who are you? What do you want?" Grandma Shimen raised her head in displeasure and looked at Li Qingshan, who was much taller than her. The arrogant expression on her face made it seem as if she was looking down on him. "Oh, you're Li Qingshan? Who are you to her?" P.S. Little N has appeared out of nowhere. Everyone, give her a warm round of applause and welcome. I don't need to say more about asking for votes, right? Chapter 160. Grandma Shimen had wanted to kill Li Qingshan the moment she saw him. It did not matter if Li Qingshan had anything to do with Zhao Liangqing and Furong's disappearance. She wanted to put an end to this matter. Soonest duty, but seeing that Little N was so close to him, it was not convenient for him to kill him, lest he formed a grudge with this good disciple. As for trash like Zhao Liangqing and Furong, it didn't matter if they died. They weren't worth Grandma's attention. Li Qingshan was stunned. He couldn't tell what kind of relationship he had with Little N, so he asked, "Who are you? What does this have to do with you?" "She's Grandma Shimen." The ship reached the shore, and Hua Qinglu leapt off, landing gracefully on the ground. With a great movement technique, she arrived before Li Qingshan in just a few leaps. The group of orthodox experts also jumped off the ship and prepared to search for the elixir that could allow people to directly advance to the Xiantian realm. When Li Qingshan heard the word gate, he was shocked. Although Zhou Wenbin had warned him, he didn't expect that the gate would directly send such an expert to deal with him. It was really unexpected. It seemed like he wasn't the only one who understood the principle of a lion hunting a rabbit. The sect wouldn't be so stupid as to send their men down one by one for him to practice. Hua Qinglu saw the Black Wolf tablet on Li Qingshan's waist and asked in surprise, "You're a Hawkwolf guard? What are you doing here?" Then he saw Little N behind Li Qingshan and praised, "What a beautiful child." Li Qingshan said, "I'm here, of course, to carry out a mission. You look a little familiar." Hua Qinglu was young, but her apple-shaped face had shapely eyebrows and vermilion lips. She was extremely pretty, as if she had seen her somewhere before. Hua Qinglu said, "Since you're a Hawkwolf guard, you've obviously seen my big brother Qingzan before. Are you carrying out a mission? Could it be that they also heard that they are going to have a gathering here?" Li Qingshan finally understood. Hua Sengzan was also a rare handsome man. Naturally, he left a deep impression on Li Qingshan. "I was the one who gathered these people. Many of them were servants and spies from the Yamen. You attacked them indiscriminately. Forget it. Thank you for your help. You saved me a lot of trouble." If it weren't for the fact that there were still innocent people on the island, he wouldn't have needed to go through so much trouble to kill them one by one. He only needed to transform into a demon and use the tiger demon's mad roar to kill everyone. Hua Qinglu widened her eyes. "What? Did you gather these people?" The group of orthodox masters behind him shivered inside. The pill-season gathering was actually a scheme of the Hawkwolf Guard. This young man sure was vicious. He actually wanted to gather all the unorthodox masters together and capture them all in one fell swoop. The pills were definitely out of the question. Grandma Shimen ignored the others and just stared at Little N. The more she looked, the happier she was. Little N felt uneasy. She hid behind Li Qingshan. Suddenly, Li Qingshan arrived behind Li Qingshan and grabbed Little N's hand. She said to Li Qingshan, "This girl has all the fortune in the world. I've taken a liking to her. I want to take her as my disciple and take her back to Clear River City. Are you willing?" She unleashed her arts of charm. In a daze, Li Qingshan saw a great beauty pleading beside his ear. He could not turn down any of her requests. However, when he realized she wanted to take Little N away, he immediately shuddered. He bellowed out, "Don't even think about it." When he looked at Grandma Shimen again, she no longer possessed any beauty at all. She was clearly an old monster with orange peels all over her face and vermilion lips. She was just disgusting. Li Qingshan thought of that Furong. He wanted to know why this old hag wanted to take Little N to a place like the gate. Fury surged into his head, and murderousness immediately erupted. Red light flickered in his eyes. He was tempted to immediately kill Grandma Shimin on the spot. Even if you've been a benevolent person for 10 lifetimes, an Amitba, I'll still tear you to pieces for making a request like that to vent my hatred. In fact, he even had the thought of turning into a demon to kill the old hag before silencing everyone present. However, he gave up on it in the end. He was unwilling to slaughter the innocent, nor was he confident in killing Grandma Shimin. All he could do was suppress his fury and glare at Grandma Shimin. I must kill this old hag. Hua Qinglu shivered. She felt like this ordinary young man had turned into a terrifying, vicious beast in a single moment, ready to devour anyone. As for the group of orthodox experts, a few of them with weaker martial arts directly fell to the ground. Grandma Shimin was slightly surprised. She never thought a second-layer Qi practitioner like him could actually break free from her arts of charm. However, she did not care about Li Qingshan's killing intent at all. The strong would never care about the rage of the weak. Grandma Shimin said sinisterly, "That's not up to you. You still have to ask the child's opinion." She smiled at little N. "Good child, do you want to go back with Granny? Granny has everything." Her bearing suddenly became extremely benevolent. She thought, Li Qingshan is a Qi practitioner, so his murderousness is heavy, which is why he can resist my arts of charm. Dealing with a little child who has never practiced Qi will be a piece of cake. Never did she think that little N would shake his head emotionlessly, completely unaffected by her. He was even more determined than Li Qingshan. The essence of the path of white bone and great beauty was to change all appearances and see through all appearances. It was the natural nemesis of arts of charm and illusions. Even if the sect master came in person, she would not be able to waver at all. Hua Qinglu sneered, "Old geezer Shimin, do you see that? She doesn't want to talk to you, so stop sticking your face to her." Grandma Shimin was annoyed. "Shut up, little girl." However, she was perplexed. Did the aspect of heavenly fragrance possess the ability to resist charms? Instead, she became even more passionate. She had to bring this girl back no matter what. Hua Qinglu was furious after being scolded by Grandma Shimin in front of everyone. She came from a renowned Hua family, and she was even a direct descendant. Her father was the leader of the family. She had been doted on ever since she was young. She was the little princess of the Hua family. Even her parents had never scolded her like this. Grandma Shimin no longer paid any attention to her. She changed the topic and said to Li Qingshan, "Li Qingshan, I've come from afar this time to ask you where Zhao Liangqing and Furong are." Li Qingshan said indifferently, "The two great disciples of your esteemed sect committed crimes and gave themselves away, fleeing in fear of punishment. How would I know where they are? If you know, you can tell me. I'll definitely bring them to justice." Grandma Shimin said sternly, "Don't you try to quibble. How dare you say you have nothing to do with this? In my opinion, you were the one who did it. Don't think the sect will let this go so easily." Li Qingshan said, "Zhao Liangqing is a 5th-layer Qi practitioner, while I'm a mere 2nd-layer Qi practitioner. How can I be his opponent? Old woman, don't even think about pinning the blame on me. However, if I see them again, I'll definitely kill them. That'll be a great service to the Hawkwolf Guard, worth several hundred points of merit." Grandma Shimin and Li Qingshan's conversation was hurried and quick, so Hua Qinglu was unable to butt in. However, she saw how Li Qingshan was neither servile nor overbearing when faced with Grandma Shimin, who was much more powerful than him. He even stood up to her, angering the old woman until she paled. Only then did she let out a small sigh of relief. She purposefully praised loudly, "This kid sure has some backbone despite his young age." "Old woman, that's unreasonable. The kid is only a 2nd-layer Qi practitioner. If he sees a 5th-layer Qi practitioner, he'll be running for his life. How can you say he was the one who did it? Oh right, I almost forgot. The disciples of the sect all rely on their appearances to make a living. They're all so weak, so there's nothing special about them being killed." Li Qingshan glanced at her. Despite her young age, she spoke like an elder, constantly referring to him as a kid. However, seeing how she stood on his side, He did not mind these small details. Grandma Ximen was first scolded by Li Qingshan, and then mocked by Hua Qinglu. She flew into a rage. "You're looking to die." Her aura was like a raging tide, kicking up wind and rain as it crushed towards Li Qingshan. The orthodox masters nearby only suffered some residual force. They felt like they were heavily injured, and their chests tightened. Only after taking several dozen steps back did they feel a little better. They stared at Grandma Ximen in great shock. They had already heard from Hua Qinglu that she was a 9th-layer Qi practitioner on the ship, but none of them had thought a 9th-layer Qi practitioner would actually be so powerful. Just the residual force from her aura alone had left them with internal injuries. Just what kind of pressure did the young man who bore the brunt of it endure? "Then why don't you try and kill me?" Li Qingshan protected little and behind him. He crossed his arms and held his head high, staring at Grandma Ximen from above. He was like a reef in the ocean, standing still no matter how the wind and rain battered him. Hua Qinglu was the closest to him. She felt her chest tighten. She had truly experienced the difference between a 9th-layer Qi practitioner and a 2nd-layer Qi practitioner. She could not help but back away, but she refused to embarrass the Hua family. She forcefully endured it. Under the pressure of the powerful aura, even her vision gradually blurred. All that remained was the will to endure. Suddenly, she felt her wrists tighten. Someone had pulled her, and the pressure lessened drastically. Her mind cleared up, and she saw Li Qingshan's large back when she raised her head. As it turned out, Li Qingshan had seen how pale she was, so he pulled her behind him to protect her. Her elder brother, Hua Sengzan, had been nice to him, and she had always been on his side. Grandma Ximen was afraid to lay her hands on him precisely because of her. He obviously had to protect this protective talisman. Hua Qinglu gasped for air gently. She had just recovered from her fright. She thought, so when brother and father fight with me normally, they're just playing with me. This old woman is actually so powerful. This kid is also a 2nd-layer Qi practitioner, so how is he so powerful? He's actually not afraid of this old woman's aura at all. Li Qingshan's strength was not just at the 2nd layer. Instead, he was equivalent to a 6th or 7th-layer Qi practitioner demon. And he was not born in a honeypot like Hua Qinglu. Instead, he had emerged from mountains of corpses and seas of blood, slaughtering 1,000 lives. His murderousness and malice were extremely heavy. Regular ghosts would not even dare to approach within 10 steps of him, so he obviously did not fear Grandma Ximen's aura. Hua Qinglu looked at little and again. He was completely fine, which made her even more gloomy. She called out from behind Li Qingshan, "Old woman, do you really want to become enemies with the Hawkwolf Guard and the Hua family?" Seeing how threats were useless, Grandma Ximen could only erase her aura. All she could do was grind her teeth in hatred. If it were not for Hua Qinglu's presence, she would have killed Li Qingshan even if she had to silence these orthodox masters. Even a 9th-layer Qi practitioner like her was not bold enough to kill a Hawkwolf Guard so brazenly. Chapter 161. Forcing the West Gate back. Monthly vote. Grandma Ximen waved her hand. "Miss Hua, I'll show some respect to your Hua family, but you better not be stubborn. This is an important matter for our sect, so it's best if you don't interfere. Take these people and leave." Hua Qinglu would never fall for that. She said, "Since he's a Hawkwolf Guard, he's under my elder brother's command. I definitely won't turn a blind eye to this. If you have the ability, then kill me too. Only then will no one accuse you. Otherwise, you'll be the murderer of abducting children and killing Hawkwolf Guards." Grandma Ximen's face became even colder. She had already thought of this many times. If he were a regular descendant of the Hua family, she would have killed him a long time ago. It would be fine as long as she did not leave behind any evidence. However, Hua Qinglu was the little princess of the Hua family. Even without direct evidence, as long as they found out she had come to Lakeside City, the Hua family would never stop until she was dead. Even the sect could not protect her. All Grandma Ximen could do was change her attitude. She said to Li Qingshan earnestly, "Children really don't know anything. A girl with the aspect of heavenly fragrance and beauty is a huge disaster to a weakling like you. Hand her to me, and we'll be able to turn enemies into friends. What do you want? Whether it's pills or spiritual artifacts, I have them all. You can choose whatever you want. Little and grabbed Li Qingshan by the hem of his clothes. Li Qingshan only said one word to Grandma Shimin, "Piss off." Grandma Shimin was completely angered. She raised her claw-like hand and true qi surged out violently, stabbing Li Qingshan's face from a few feet away. Li Qingshan stamped her foot and called out, "Piss off." She called out, "Don't you dare." Grandma Shimin hesitated for a moment before pulling back her hand viciously. Sure enough, she was afraid. "This girl, I'm determined to get the sect. I'd like to see if you can keep hiding behind this girl." With that, she boarded the carriage and took off through the mist. Hua Chenglu exhaled deeply, and Li Qingshan also felt relieved. He turned around and said, "Thank you for your righteous assistance, miss." If it were not for Hua Chenglu, he was confident that he would not have been captured by Grandma Shimin so easily, but his demonic transformation and Little An's abilities would have been exposed, leading to endless trouble in the future. As for killing Grandma Shimin, that was basically impossible for him right now. Hua Chenglu nodded rather generously. "Sure." Afterwards, she waved her hand. "Let's talk on the ship." Li Qingshan nodded and boarded the wave cutter with Little N. The group of Orthodox masters still rummaged through the ruins of the island, unwilling to give up. Of course, they found nothing. Someone asked curiously, "Why isn't there a corpse?" Could it be that they were all destroyed by cannons? There's no reason to shatter it like that. Li Qingshan became vigilant. Devouring flesh and blood on a large scale for cultivation would definitely raise suspicion. If he caught the attention of someone with ulterior motives, he would be exposed sooner or later. He needed to be even more careful. Fortunately, Little N had already recovered her body, so there was no need for her to search for flesh and blood in a hurry. The path of white bone and great beauty could also be put off for a while. He rubbed Little An's head and thought about how she had been a child. Ever since she had followed him, she had spent all her time killing and arson. Now that she had recovered her body after so much difficulty, it was time for her to enjoy the happiness of an ordinary child. It was his responsibility to seek greater power to protect her. Little An raised her head and looked at Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan smiled, and the corner of Little An's lips twitched as well. She smiled rather unnaturally in response. Li Qingshan pinched her cheek and smiled. "You still need more practice. It's better to smile more as a person." Little An lowered her head in embarrassment. Her cheeks reddened. Although Li Qingshan did not know what the aspect of heavenly fragrance and great beauty was, he still found it extremely cute. When he thought back to when Little An was a soul, her face was completely pale. She did not seem to possess such enchanting charm. Little did he know that the body reconstructed by the path of white bone and great beauty could be described as the most perfect body in the world. Even the white bone bodhisattva might not have been able to describe the aspect of heavenly fragrance and great beauty. She only pursued the pinnacle of beauty in the world, and the true profoundness behind it could not be described as the aspect of heavenly fragrance and great beauty. Hua Qinglu called out to the shore, "If you still don't get on the ship, I'm leaving." The Orthodox masters gave up on their search in a hurry and returned to the ship. Under the pitch-black sky, rain pattered down. Experts stood on both sides. "Please." Hua Qinglu waved her hand and invited Li Qingshan into the cabin. They passed through the brightly lit corridor and arrived in an extremely luxurious hall. There was not a single lantern in the hall, but the cabin was brightly lit. The walls were embedded with semi-transparent crystals that shone with gentle, white light. The air was pleasant. It was neither dry nor humid, neither cold nor hot. It demonstrated the luxury of Qi practitioner clans everywhere. Hua Qinglu and Li Qingshan sat in the seat of honor, while the Orthodox masters sat on the two sides. They chatted and laughed happily. They were in an extremely good mood. Although they had not found the pill, knowing that their enemies had been annihilated was still an extremely delightful matter. "Great hero," you even roared out, "Bring some alcohol. We've killed these bastards." We need to celebrate properly. The crowd responded loudly. There were also those who were jealous. They thought, this bastard's fierce-looking face makes him seem even more of a bandit than a bandit. I wonder how he managed to produce such a beautiful daughter. He's connected to the Hua family. His wife must have cheated on him outside. Hua Qinglu shot a glance at him before ordering people to prepare refreshments for the guests in an extremely practiced manner. Great hero, you stopped talking in a hurry and smiled obsequiously. Drinking tea. Drinking tea is the same. If an adult had done all of this, perhaps Li Qingshan would have found it natural, but she was only 13 or 14. Her face was still childish, like a child acting like an adult. It was rather amusing, and there was no need for her to give any orders at all. She just waved a small flag, and a few mechanical puppets would clatter up from the bottom of the cabin, delivering refreshments. It made her actions seem more and more like a child's game. This was the first time Li Qingshan had seen puppets like this, which piqued his curiosity. He sighed in amazement at the wonders of this world once again. The puppets seemed to be made from wood. Their heads were carved with faces, and the joints of their hands and feet were distinct. They were extremely nimble too, without the slightest stiffness. It was possible to imagine that they could move as swiftly as the wind when needed. Little and was completely glued to them. Only when the puppets had left did he look away reluctantly. Li Qingshan thought of something. He remembered it. Hua Qinglu took a sip of tea and said sternly, "How did you offend this old hag?" As a result, Li Qingshan told her about what had happened in the tower on the city walls of Jiaping, but he hid the fact that Shuo Zhibua had framed him. Hua Sengzan was definitely much more familiar with Shuo Zhibua than he was. People who crossed their ranks to lodge complaints were never welcomed, let alone through this little girl. When Hua Qinglu heard about how the tower forced women into prostitution, her tiny face reddened in anger. All she heard was how Li Qingshan killed the procuress and raided the tower. She praised, "Well done. The Hawkwolf Guard just happens to be in need of a good man who doesn't fear violence like you. Saving you really was the right decision." Li Qingshan grinned and held back his smile. He also said sternly, "This is what I should do." Hua Qinglu asked curiously, "What other missions have you carried out?" "I've only joined the Hawkwolf Guard recently, so I haven't carried out many missions." Li Qingshan then told her about his mission in ancient Wind City, as well as his plan to come to the island of cherishing flowers this time. Hua Qinglu listened with rapt attention, interrupting from time to time. This little girl lived a life of luxury, so who knew where her murderousness came from? She became extremely excited as soon as she heard the two words, exterminating an entire family. She insisted that Li Qingshan explain in detail. In the end, she said rather regretfully, "It's just a pity that my elder brother won't let me join the Hawkwolf Guard so soon. Otherwise, I'd be able to carry out missions with you, Qingshan." Li Qingshan thought, with the Hua family's strength, they can just eat pills as they please. Why would they need to carry out missions so painstakingly? If I were you, I'd definitely eat until I became a demon general before leaving the mountain. However, he said, Commander Hua is taking good care of you. Only when you're strong can you carry out more missions. I believe you'll definitely become an even better Hawkwolf Guard than me in the future. Hua Qinglu said, "Exactly. You're pretty much the same as my elder brother." Li Qingshan thought, "So that's how your elder brother coaxes you too." If the entire situation was described in the form of a news report, it would be, "The leader of our country, Hua Qinglu, received Li Qingshan warmly and engaged in a deep conversation with him. She confirmed and supported Li Qingshan's work, encouraging him to continue working hard and reach new heights." The orthodox cultivators watched on as bystanders. Their feelings were rather mixed, as apart from little and the youngest people present were Li Qingshan and Hua Qinglu. Most of them were first-rate masters, only a step away from the first layer of Qi practitioner. However, it was this latent barrier to the innate realm that separated the nobility from the lowly. However, they just could not accept it. No matter how many times they heard about what Li Qingshan had done, they still felt shocked. Then they thought about the unorthodox masters who boasted that they were on the blacklist and cursed them a few more times. Afterwards, they made up their minds to never make it onto the blacklist for the rest of their lives. Otherwise, who knew when they would be wiped out when they attended a gathering? After the battle on the island of Cherishing Flowers, the orthodox path within several hundred kilometers of Jiaping City flourished. The atmosphere of the Jianghu became extremely good. Young heroes and great heroes appeared in large numbers. Every single one of them was law-abiding, respecting the old and cherishing the young. Even if they did some thieving, they would do it secretly and extremely carefully. They would never do it openly. Li Qingshan could be said to have done a great job. A while later, the ship arrived on the shore, and everyone disembarked. Hua Qinglu extended her hand, and the huge ship rapidly shrank. In the end, it was sucked into her palm and returned to her 100 treasures pouch. She said rather regretfully, "This lake is too small. We can't travel." Li Qingshan and Little An's eyes lit up again. Before they set off, the Orthodox masters had already prepared a celebratory feast in the lake-viewing restaurant of Lakeside City. Li Qingshan exhaled gently. He still had to keep up the act. The girl had helped him out so much, so he had to make her happy. And although he could not see, hear, or smell anything, he could clearly sense that Grandma Shimin had not gone far. The hostility and killing intent still enveloped him vaguely. He was afraid that as soon as he left Grandma Shimin's side, he would immediately have to fight to the death with her. Putting on an act with the girl was better than risking his life against the old woman. Although he had made up his mind to kill Grandma Shimin, now was not the time. The West Gate Granny was already so old, and it was impossible for her cultivation to improve any further. On the other hand, he was constantly becoming stronger. As long as he could stall for some time, he would be able to kill her without being injured at all. Why should he take the risk now? P.S. Strongly calling for a guaranteed monthly ticket. A new month, a new beginning. Let's go! Welcome to Legends of Cultivation audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.